continuously. So when I was younger, I was running parties, I was running events, I was running like DJ events, I was drop shipping, I ran e-commerce stores, but I did drop shipping before it was cool. Like I did drop shipping in 2016.
Darren Lee, the visionary entrepreneur behind Voix. He went from $0 to multi-six figures in just 4 months. Darren is not just a podcaster, but a force driving purposeful entrepreneurship. As the founder of Voix, he empowers entrepreneurs to elevate their brands through impactful podcasting. With his motto, "We make growing podcasts easy," Darren Lee is reshaping the way we amplify voices and make a real impact on the world.
So I was working in Revolut at the time and I was making a lot of money for someone who's 25 years old. But at the time, it still wasn't fulfilling that aspect. And I knew it was going to be on a bigger impact play. So for me, when I knew I was getting online 6 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon like this, I was hitting that impact. The internet has leveled the playing field. You have no code, you have low code, you have AI, automation. You don't need the support of these big tech companies to venture up whatever plat you want. You can do it all on your own. And that was the whole idea, right? Cash flowing business, service business, in something in a space like this, leveraging media, right? You only have 4 different levers. You have cash, capital, media, and you can't do it all. You just have to lean in on one. And media has the highest form of leverage. People don't think anymore. They wake up, they look at their phone, they scroll through their phone, they get in a taxi going to work, or get the bus getting to work, or watching Netflix. They're in work getting brainwashed. They come back, they throw on the news getting brainwashed. They go on social media getting brainwashed. They go on Netflix getting brainwashed. And they don't think critically. So the whole idea is to allow people to think critically, to open their mind. And if they open their mind, they'll see what's possible. You're going to become a better entrepreneur. You're going to be a better person. I remember for a long time, we were stuck in the business. We were making like about $250,000 a year. And I was basically banging my head off the table trying to like figure out how we could just grow.
Unleash podcast is sponsored by Expose-Me.
Darren, are you ready to unleash?
Of course.
What's the percentage?
100%.
Not 110?
115%. Let's go.
It's a pleasure having you. But before we start our podcast, can you tell me how was your trip to Dubai?
Man, every time I come to Dubai, I just get so much energy from the place. It's just everybody is just driven towards pretty much the same goal. And you find the best people here that are chasing all the same dream, right? That's the whole idea. But beyond like the status and the wealth and all that kind of stuff, it's just a great place. There's just so much opportunity. There's great gyms, there's great food, there's great people. And I feel for anybody that's like young and ambitious, you have to be here.
That's amazing. And what about your trip from Dubai Marina till here?
A bit rough, but 6 p.m. coming down, second podcast of the day, but I love it, man. You know,
1 hour, I know. Then when I looked at your profile and your story, it's really intriguing. But I always ask this question: why you are an entrepreneur right now?
I feel like a lot of people, entrepreneurship is like baked into, but with everything that goes on in the world, it's like pushed to the side. So when I was coming through university, I was doing software engineering, I got into consulting, I got into tech. I basically did the natural path. There was always something in me that almost resented like control or resented authority. And I saw that continuously. So when I was younger, I was running parties, I was running events, I was running like DJ events, I was drop shipping, I ran e-commerce stores, but I did drop shipping before it was cool. Like I did drop shipping in 2016, 2017.
What Shopify?
Just Shopify was getting there, but I barely had any of the plugins. So I ran up a Shopify store and I did what else did I do? I did a lot of like basically vintage clothing. And I loved that path, but I always pulled back to the tradition. And I always went back to doing the 9 to 5 and doing all this traditional path. But if I ever charted back times where I was most fulfilled or most interested, it was always doing my own thing. Whether that is sport, travel, into any sort of individuality was always where I nearly excelled in. But of course, like, you know, entrepreneurship has many ups and downs. So it was just about how can I lean into those variables. But for me, it wasn't the natural, let's go build a tech company. It ended up being a podcast and fulfilling that area, which for me is the intersection of my curiosity and my skill. Because for me, as you can tell, we can just talk all day, right? We could literally run this up for hours. But at the same time, it's what I enjoy and what I want to pursue. So when I started this podcast and when I started my own background in media, I wasn't good at it. I was terrible at it. I didn't speak well. And because of that, I knew I had the ability to get better. If I stuck with it and went really hard at it every single day, I was going to get better. And inside my brain, it pissed me off that I wasn't getting better. And I just thought, if I just keep on going and I just keep putting in the reps from episode 1 to 10 to 50 to 100, it is inevitable that I will get better. And I had to work on all the small nuances, work on my own insecurities, work on things that I thought were going to hold me back. And just all those small changes literally made me be the person that I am today. And without those, you're not going to be anyone.
That's lovely. Can you tell me, I like that you came also from a corporate background, right? Accenture, you worked in Accenture as senior business analyst, and then you moved into Revolut, right? And then you just start to pursue your entrepreneurship. Do you remember that moment when you just took a decision getting out of corporate and just move into your entrepreneurship? Can you come back to that moment and tell me why? What was the reason of taking such a decision?
It's usually a combination of small things that add up over time. So when I was working in Accenture, for many people, it's a great job and there's nothing wrong with it. If you want to work a 9 to 5, it's completely fine. But for me, I was not getting that area of fulfillment and it was holding me back. So I was trying to find basically a new outlet when I was in Accenture. And I was thinking to myself, what I was told, I did not get. I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't making a lot of money. I wasn't really enjoying any of it. So I was looking for something always. And in Accenture at that time, I wanted to do something that was different. But I didn't want to run up a new e-commerce store or do drop shipping. So I said, let's do something social. Let's do something that lets me interact with other people. And that's when I said, let's start a podcast, right? Because at that point, I was during pandemic, there was nothing to do. I was at home, I had all this time and probably a little bit of cash. And I said, let's just get online, start talking to people on Zoom and start putting in those reps. Now, that was a snowball effect because that opened my eyes to what is possible, right? It wasn't the fact that I could just open up Instagram and saw everyone, you know, living the life in Dubai, but I was interacting with people who were probably quite similar to me in many ways, but they just took the risk, right? So I was kind of putting in these reps and seeing and interviewing people that over time were doing some good stuff. They were either building companies, raising capital, selling products, And over time I was like, hey, this could be me. So as I moved on in my career, I went keeping working in Revolut. I was working in trading at the time. I was building products. But again, I'd reached the same issue. History repeats itself, right? It doesn't rhyme, but often repeats itself. I was in the same area, but I wasn't enjoying it. And I thought, hey.
But can I ask you, what do you mean just this lack of fulfillment? What do you mean? What did you lack? What were you searching for at that time?
Deep down, we're always looking for something that's a connection. And I feel that when you're working for someone else in these big companies, you're part of the machine. So if you're someone like us who thinks deeply about where they are, what their existence are, what the impact they want to have, what type of legacy do you want to have, when you're doing something that's in misalignment with that, that's just going to lead to a lot of like deep down like regret and resentment. So I was working in Revolut at the time and I was making a lot of money for someone who was 25 years old. But at the time, it still wasn't fulfilling that aspect. And I knew it was going to be on a bigger impact play. So for me, when I knew I was getting online 6 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon like this, I was hitting that impact because I was getting this message out to people and I was interacting with amazing people like you and I was putting out episodes. And the feedback I was getting from people was that, hey, I'm in a similar position to you right now and it fucking sucks. So I really value this content and keep on going. And that's what I needed. I knew that that's where we were getting that impact, and it was about moving the alignment away from fulfilling someone else's dream and bringing it back to doing something that I wanted to do. And I knew the feedback loop, the product market fit or the podcast market fit that we had hit was so strong that I just had to put it on steroids. I had to just keep vamping up the content, putting out more content, interacting with more people. And that's when I knew this is time to leave. This is the time that I can put everything into it. And I know that our business in the back end is going to be supporting of it. I know that I have built up a knowledge and expertise. And you always only have two things. You have experience and you have authority. You can't get authority without the experience, and you can't have experience without the authority. So for me, I put in the reps deliberately. I'd put the scars down, the wounds down in the arena. So it was kind of like I was able to, I guess, capitalize on the integrity I'd built over my audience. And people were like, yeah, we like, know, and trust this dude. He's put years into doing this. And as a result, the business on the back end was able to grow. And just for context, we run a podcast business that's going to be in the podcast space, right? So coming from the tech world, this is a big handbrake turn, right? And most people are like, whoa, why don't you just go raise a bunch of capital and just like basically go work for another VC? And I was like, because that's not why we're doing this, right? The internet has leveled the playing field. You have no code, you have low code, you have AI, automation. You don't need the support of these big tech companies to venture up whatever plat you want. You can do it all on your own. And that was the whole idea, right? Cash flowing business, service business, in something in a space like this, leveraging media, right? You only have 4 different levers. You have cash, capital, media, and you can't do it all. You just have to lean in on one. And media has the highest form of leverage. So I knew I could get the asymmetrical returns. I wasn't going to be someone who was struggling, trying to raise money and whatever. Peter Thiel says first-time founders focus on product, second-time founders focus on distribution. I went straight in for distribution. I knew that's exactly where we could take off. If I went all in on distribution, we could basically build an amazing business, an amazing product.
That's amazing. The question now, I think that our story is mostly common, which is amazing. The question, when you just took a decision to leave out of the corporate, how did you plan it financially? Was it just one-off, or you had a plan, like a longer plan of it, or you just jump out of the cliff and you start to fly?
I had a plan.
You
I
had
had
a
a master plan, and it came from my mentor, Justin Welsh. Justin says, build your business on the side and get up to 60% of your monthly income from your job. So if you're making $10K a month in your job, get up to around 60% of that, $6,000. Do it for 2 to 3 months, and that gives you the confidence that you can go and leave. So I was building my media company at the side. I was making in around $8,000 a month. I got a couple of clients, got up to like 5,000, 6,000. I sustained that for maybe 2-3 months, and I knew, okay, if I'm committing 20 hours a week and I'm able to make this money, then if I put 80 hours, 90 hours, 100 hours a week, I'm going to get those asymmetrical returns. And unlike a job where it's input equals output and you put in 40 hours a week to get your income, right? At the end of the day in a business, it's asymmetrical. You don't get paid based on your input, you get paid on your outcomes. So I knew that my main focus is relationships, connecting, marketing, sales, right? If I get really, really good at that and I really hone in on that, over time, this asymmetrical returns, I'm going to make way more money. So I kind of gave myself that confidence. And it's not delusion. Delusion is leaving your job with no idea what you're going to do, right? It's just literally looking in the wind and just hoping. You need to have data. So I had clear data that, hey, this was the audience that we'd built. This is the engagement I'm getting from people. This is the monthly recurring revenue that we're currently at. Back yourself, right? Back yourself in that scenario, because most guys don't back themselves. Most people look at their family around them or their environment and say, oh no, I can't do that because I'm the first entrepreneur in my family or whatever. You have to back yourself. And as a result, I was able to, scale our company 50x, 100x where we currently are at, right? And the reason for that is because it's about focus. And I knew that when I had those resources and you just have narrow, deep focus, it's going to be, it's inevitable it's going to work in the end.
How long does it take from you just to reach this 60% from your income?
It's interesting. It's not about how long, it's about the focus, right? Because I've seen lots of founders basically go all in on a business and be able to scale it significantly. I've seen some guys run 5 different side hustles and they all make nothing, right? So for me, I've been in the entrepreneurship space for a couple of years, right? But the more narrow my focus has become, the more crazier returns become, right? Because if you imagine we're in the desert, if you imagine you have a magnifying glass and you're trying to start a fire and you have a few Kindle, you get a magnifying glass and you shine it up from the sun and you put it down to the Kindle, it's going to sparkle, right? If you were using a mirror, a big, large mirror, and tried to put it down, it's not going to work, right? Because you've split focus, and split focus is no focus. You try to catch two hairs and you catch none, right? So the more deep you are, the shorter your time horizon. So everyone, to some degree, believes they're going to be wealthy and they think they're going to be rich, but no one realizes that there's a time delay. So every cause has an effect. So you can get to where you are with your personal branding business in a couple of months. For some people, that can be a couple of years. But it's all about how long are you willing to put in and the focus you're willing to have in that narrow space, right? And that's a big issue in this online community space.
I like your story. Didn't you have like self-doubts once you just moved out of the corporate and you said to yourself, what if it doesn't work? What I'll do?
The biggest skill you can have is belief and to really back yourself. But you need to have like real confidence, right? So in the beginning, I was building out of hate for sure, because I hated the life that I had built. I hated the structure that I put myself in, the system that I put myself in, and it was all my own fault. I put myself in those scenarios, right? So I thought of that worst case scenario, going back to that job, going back into those really awful companies, those bad cultures, those bad meetings, those daily stand-ups, all that bullshit. And I thought, that is definitely what I don't want. And I started building out of that hate. Now that is amazing to go from 0 to 1. It was the best thing I could possibly have, to look back in those days and say, that's not what I want. And really focus in, narrow focus in on achieving, that small bit of success. But after that, then you move from scarcity into like abundance. And what's the opportunity? But I think that's a nice part to have, right? I think all men to some degree should be paranoid. You should have a small bit of paranoia of what could happen if you slow down and you don't keep on going. That paranoia, that anxiety is good in the beginning. It's not something you should sustain forever, 100%. But to go 0 to 1, it's a great little filter, because I remember, I was living in a $2.5 million apartment in Singapore. I had like a lot of expenses. I had just left my job and I was just moving on to another phase of my life. And I remember getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning with a deep feeling of anxiety in my stomach, being like, I have to make this work. If I don't make this work, I'm going to end back up in these companies. And that's when I got up. I loved doing cold outreach. I literally loved doing sales. I was doing sales calls with CEOs from America at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. They would literally say, oh, it's Derek there. I'm like, yeah, it's 4 a.m. and I'm making it work, right? Because you have to make those sacrifices in the beginning. And then over time, confidence breeds results, and results breeds confidence, and you keep on going and you completely relinquish yourself of that kind of fear. Now, different stages of business. We're definitely in a mature stage right now. I always say that we're a startup with an enterprise mentality, and I'm trying to build like effectively an enterprise from the ground up versus when you look at IBM, right? IBM is IBM today, but they had the same mentality when they were small, systematized, automated, well structured. So I think we get to different stages as an entrepreneur, and I'm moving to the next phase of my life as an entrepreneur, basically.
That's amazing, man. Congratulations for all of these amazing achievements. How did you find your passion in podcasting? Do you remember that moment?
I think passion is necessarily, it's more earned than given to. So let me give you an example. If you are amazing at tennis, and you're a kid that's like amazing at tennis, it didn't really come naturally to you. You had natural talents, but your parents drove you to tennis court Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. When you got a little bit older, you had a coach who reviewed your performance Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you became passionate about tennis. It didn't really come to you initially. And a lot of the problem is people think that you have to go like searching for it, but it almost like finds you, because you find the intersection of what your purpose is, what you love, what you're good at, and also what the world wants, right? I've just seen this huge snowball effect in this human connection. This, what we're doing today, is the last form of communication. This is one of the last forms of natural communication as a podcast. Everything is automated. Everything is outsourced these days. And this is becoming decreasingly apparent, right? We don't have this interaction anymore. So seeing that has made me become more passionate about it, because I'm interacting with you now. We've had some great conversations for the past hour. And in a world whereby everyone's trying to, reduce the extra 1 second or 3 seconds, or, get rid of that call or get rid of that meeting, I feel we need more of this. And I'm just more passionate about that, which is meant for me to stay in the arena of podcasting. I love it. And I'm really interested with it. And I'll sit down with a client and I'll review their questions with them and review their structure and their interactions. And they want that advice because they want to be a better communicator, not in podcasting, but in the world. They want to be able to interact with their wife, their family, their kids. They want to be able to understand and listen. And listening and learning is one of the most valuable skills in the world. So it's a combination of like, what am I good at? What do I enjoy? What do people need? And what is actually in decline? People are becoming, they're just less interested in each other. And we need to bring that back, right?
Do you remember the first episode that you have done as a podcaster?
Of course.
How did you feel?
I remember I was not so good, but my guest was awesome. And his name is Connor Lydon. He's a CEO of a company called Trust App. And I remember it was just starting out, real humble beginnings. So my first podcast was, I bought a microphone from Amazon. It was $60 with a money back guarantee, because I believed that I was going to return the microphone. I believed that I was going to record 3 podcasts, not release any of them, and hand back the microphone, because I was so embarrassed. I was thinking, what would my friends think? What would the chicks think? What would the guys think? What would my family think? And I just thought that this was not going to be for me. But I did it, and I had this feeling of, why am I not getting better? And what can I do? It's reps, right? The only way you can get quality is with quantity. And the more quantity you do, the higher the quality. And that's what it was all about, right? So from the very beginning with the $60 microphone, it was about how can I put as much quality into this with quantity, and as a result, it's going to just keep on growing. And that's what it is. It's just an ongoing pursuit. And it's the same with anything. You want to get on LinkedIn, it's not going to be your first post that's going to pop, it's going to be your 100. You want to meet that chick, right? You're going to have to go up and talk to a bunch of chicks to be able to get better at speaking and interacting. You want to pitch to investors, you want to close deals. It's that small interactive accounts, and that's what I love. And that's what made me do 200 episodes, right? Because the first one was going to suck, but it's about the reps.
Yeah. What makes you continue? You said that let's say that you have 3 episodes, right? What was the motive that kept you just continuing moving forward in podcasting?
I only want to play infinite games. I don't want to play games that have a finite amount of time. I don't want to play games that finish. I don't want to play games that need to be externally reviewed. I want to play games that go on externally forever. And that's the only way I want to view life. You don't win in business, you just keep playing. You don't win in podcasting, you just keep recording. You don't win in the gym, you just keep training. You don't win with your nutrition, you just stay dialed in. And that's the only game that I want to play, is the infinite game. Most people are playing finite games. They want to finish the game, the video game. They want to finish the course. They want to launch the product. They want to have the big, win and exit. And that's a wrong way to view the world. I think the best games to play are games that you can play forever. So when I'm looking to approach something, I'm not looking how long can I do it. I'm looking, can I do it every single day for 100 weeks straight? And at that point, if I'm not better, then maybe I'll do something else. But that's the only way I want to look at it. If I'm picking up a new skill, so I'm reading at the moment 50 pages a day. And I hate reading. I'm dyslexic, right? And I'm dyslexic as a kid. I was in the bottom class as a kid. I read out loud every single day 50 pages. I don't have to do that. I don't want to do that. It sucks. I do it to improve my literacy. I do it to improve my comprehension. I do it to improve my mental just articulation. And I'm doing something that I want to do every single day because it's going to benefit me. And having that desire and goal is daunting to some, but that's how you stay in the arena. If you look at the best people in the world, right? The best actors, the best creators, the best sports stars, they're playing an infinite game. There's a fantastic story about Will Smith when he was with Mark Manson. So Mark Manson, the author, he wrote his book, I think it's called Will, and he asked him, why does he have all the staff in his house? He's staff that does everything. Staff that cooks his food, that washes his clothes, that brings him here and there. And he said, I work on becoming the best actor that I can possibly be because that's my natural gift. And I have the best chef in the world because his natural gift is being the best chef. So it would be a disservice to the chef for me to cook my food because it's his responsibility to be the best possible chef. And he wants that. He wants to be the best chef so he can be the best chef and I can be the best actor. And that's why Will Smith spends 12 hours a day for the past 30 years becoming the best possible actor. And you need to have that. You need to be, as an entrepreneur, you need to act like an athlete. And basically, just like you are today, a whole athlete, right? You have the mind, the body, the spirit, the physique, everything. It all works together.
That's beautiful, man. Where do you want to go with your podcast?
For me, it's impact. So people start a business to make money. Nothing wrong with that. Starting a podcast is all about the impact play. I truly believe that we're helping younger people live a richer, more fulfilling life. And that's multifactorial. It's not just money in the bank. Wealth is a mindset. So it's a combination of your health, your fitness, your relationships, how you interact with people, the fulfillment you have in life. And it's about having that larger impact. And I truly believe that we're going to be able to impact tens of millions of people. Through our content, through long form, through short form. The whole idea is to help people chart a real clear path for themselves. If they want to go work for big companies, fantastic. If that's a path that they want, but if you don't have a path, you'll be assigned a path. And a lot of people will follow this path until it's too late. You know, they're leveraged up, they have a house, family, kids, and they're going off doing something else. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to chart your own path, you're going to need mentors. You're going to need people around you to support you and lift you up. And kickoff sessions has always been a center point. Because I'm not trying to be the one that's saying, hey, listen to me, I'm the expert. But thankfully, 202 episodes later, we have possibly the best guests in the world to some degree, you would say. There's some guests in there who are genuinely some of the best guests in the world to have on a podcast. And that information is basically an avenue for people to start thinking clearly. People don't think anymore. They wake up, they look at their phone, they scroll through their phone, they get in a taxi going to work or get the bus getting to work, they're watching Netflix, they're in work getting brainwashed, they come back, they throw on the news getting brainwashed, they go on social media getting brainwashed, they go on Netflix getting brainwashed, and they don't think critically. So the whole idea is to allow people to think critically, to open their mind, and if they open their mind, they'll see what's possible. And that's my impact play. And I feel genuinely, like, truly fulfilled doing that. We record a lot of podcasts. It's tough. It's a tough gig. We fly a lot. We spend a lot of money doing it. It's very expensive. It's not a profitable business, I'll put it that way. But it's that broader impact, right? And I feel that if more people follow curiosity, they're going to live a better life.
I know that you're an expert in podcasting. If someone just listening to us right now and they just got inspired to start their podcast, what are those advices that you can give it to them based on your experience that will keep them always in the game? It's a good question.
The end of your question is the best part because it's not about starting, it's about keeping going, right? So if you're in a position whereby you're thinking about starting content and you don't know what you want to do, go back to the center. Why is it you're doing it, right? Is it to get leads? Is it to grow your status? Is it to grow your network? All valuable things. But it's understanding the end goal. And one of the 48 laws of power is always define the end goal. Reverse engineer the end goal. So if you're able to chart out what it is I want to do. So if I want to start a personal branding podcast, well, I want to understand why it is that I'm doing it. I want to do it to grow my influence, my authority, to be an influential speaker. And by doing that, you can basically understand what is the roadmap. So again, only do something if you want to do it for 100 weeks straight. So if you are thinking of starting, let's say, a podcast on personal branding, open up a spreadsheet, get dirty with the data and write down every single possible episode you want to record. Write down every single possible guest you want to interview. And it can be completely up in the air. It can be the most famous people in the world, but just have some structure. Who are these people? I've launch many different podcasts. And the first step I do is get people to write down an exact list of who they want to interview. And they can be almost fictitious, right? It can be literally just people in history, but it gives you a framing. Because what you're trying to do is like zoom out and understand how the podcast is going to function. Because it's not about the mics, even though the mics are great.
It's amazing.
It's about it's about understanding the longer term view, right? Because 90% of podcasts don't get to episode 3. Of the 10% that are left, 90% don't get to episode 20. And it's not due to talent. It's due to a lack of organization. People don't understand the amount of work that goes in. They get overwhelmed. They jump into the space and they miscalculate. And a lot of the biggest wars in the past have been lost due to miscalculations. They've prepared the land wrong. They didn't prepare right. And it's not to do with the people, processes, or the tools. It's to do with the planning. So if you're able to really articulate that planning, it's more important than anything else.
So what, based on your experience, what was the major reason, aside from planning, that kept people just getting out of this podcasting? Maybe after 3 episodes, maybe after 20 episodes?
For quitting.
Yes, quitting totally.
Short term, they're basically sacrificing long-term goals for short-term happiness. They're trying to think that, how can this fill my current problem today? And they're not looking at it from a long-term perspective. The longer your time horizon, the greater your results. It's compound interest. The longer you can plan out, the more profound effects we can have. But they don't get the instant gratification. And we live in a world whereby everything is instant gratification, from the donut to the social media to everything that is online. So the longer you can delay gratification, the greater results. So they'll get into this thinking it's going to be like Instagram. I put up a photo of my abs and I get a bunch of likes. But that's not what podcasting is. It's a grind. It's slow grind, because these episodes are, the challenge is that they're quite long, and as a result the retention is quite lower. But this is what people don't understand, is the engagement is higher, the trust is higher. So people think that because they're not getting likes and feedback and shares that it's not working, but that's wrong. Daniel Priestley broke down in his book Key Person of Influence that people need around 7 hours of your content to be able to buy from you. So you can get 7 hours of reading tweets, which takes you a year and a half, or you can get 7 hours of a podcast, which can take a month. So take the route that's more trustworthy, because the goal is to become a key person of influence. It's to build authority and influence in your niche. And what's interesting is people might think podcasting is saturated, but it's not true. There's 2 million podcasts. 90% of them are out of business. But what has the 200,000 left in common? Very little with you. You run a personal branding podcast and have massive influence on LinkedIn. There's not many people that have that. So now you are someone who has influence as a personal branding expert, who has a podcast, and the intersection, there's almost no one like you. And especially in Dubai, there's probably even less people like you, right? That has that level of influence. So it's about understanding that goal. And if you can really see through the mud, it's endless. We started working with a new client at the moment who's been doing this for 5 years. And he's actually been hacking his podcast together, like barely doing it at all for 5 years. And it's built this massive business in the back end. And now he started working with us, and I was like, we're going to make you a lot of money. Because when you put a nice structure and, basically like a design around it and present episodes like you do today, it's amazing amount of influence you can have. But again, it's not about sacrificing long-term goals for short-term happiness.
That's beautiful. What could be the strategies that you can gain from a podcast?
Strategies in what way?
In just a benefit. Because I believe most people, when they think about podcasting, the major objective of them, they need to have like a fame. They need I need to have too much audiences. I need to have too many engagements. I need to have too many likes.
Yeah.
But is it the real objective that we needed?
No. Content is about trust. It's about building trust with individuals, right? And that trust can end up in money in your bank account, friendships, network, relationships, partnerships. But if you start losing the zero-sum mindset that people have, and if you start thinking in terms of gaining trust, that's the most powerful outcome you could possibly have. It's about the intangibles, the stuff that you can't measure. If I run an ad, and if I get $20 in the back end, I can see an ROI from that. But with a podcast or with content, you can't directly see the actual outcome. So people think, oh, it's not worth it. But it's all about those small nuances that add up. We talked about time earlier. The effect of time and the cause and effect of time is the most profound impact that will ever have on your entire life. A podcast you record today will have a massive impact 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. You know why? Because the relationships and the structure and the foundation that you've built now has an impact in 18 months' time. The clients I signed today was a result of the work I did 2 years ago. And the fact that it has such a big impact, when I build those strong structures, that's what comes back to help you. You see a lot of these kids get into the online space, whether it's content, tweets, YouTube, and they mess it up. And the reason why they mess it up is because they do the tricks and the hacks. Whereas when you focus on the principles, understanding problems, understanding solutions, and building relationships, the effect is literally, you can almost not even chart it, right? And it's about going back to those core components. The network that I've built, the influence that I've built with other people has been absolutely crazy. And what's interesting is no one has ever asked me for my credentials. No one has ever asked me for how wealthy I am or what I've done. And the irony is a lot of people that I interview are, multi-millionaires. Some of them have even become billionaires. And they're not necessarily looking for that. They're looking for someone who can interact with and have a normal conversation and be a human, right? How weird is that to say? To actually be a human in the world where everything is being automated. So when you can have that human connection, there's that side of it. So that's the business stuff. Then from a human perspective, there's the ability to just listen and communicate. If you become a better communicator, you become a better friend. People like people who are good at communicating, who can actually interact with them. When I speak to you, I genuinely want to hear about your business, about your family, about what you do, and I'm able to listen, and people appreciate people who listen. In this world, we have this one-way conversation that people are having with people, and they're almost not listening. So when you become someone who develops communication skills, how to interact, how to speak, how to present yourself, you become a pretty well-rounded individual.
I want to speak about secrets.
Ooh.
Oh. Secret, it means experience, right? And I see your authority on YouTube. You're gaining a lot of tractions every month by your podcasting. Do you have any secrets that you're gaining it to bring more audiences and I would say even retention, tractions? If you can share with us secrets behind it.
Tell you a big secret. So YouTube is a beast. YouTube is the most powerful platform in the world, and YouTube will soon be the most powerful social media platform in the world. Everyone thinks it's TikTok, everyone thinks it's Instagram. They got it all wrong. YouTube owns the entire media space because they own the search, they own the algorithm, they own Google. It's all intertwined in the back end, right? So if you master YouTube, you've basically had a business that basically can just run autonomously because it has the most traffic. And the thing with YouTube is the videos keep on paying you. This is what everybody forgets. The issue with social media platforms is that when you post, it's all over. YouTube is a gift that keeps on giving. If you create a great video, it's going to keep on playing and getting the new users. Knowing that, you got to create excellent videos that's going to hit for the dawn of time. It's going to be 10 years from now, and that evergreen piece of content is going to keep on running. So how do we do this? The issue or the opportunity is that YouTube have now become a podcast platform. And because of that, what they've tried to do was pull attention away from Spotify and Apple. And with that, they said, okay, anyone that has tags of like a podcast last year, we're gonna grow, or we're gonna give some more visibility. That's changed. Now it's about who has the core big idea in the video. So let's give an example. How to build a personal brand on LinkedIn. If that was the YouTube video, if that was the video for your podcast, the title for your podcast, it doesn't matter if it was 7 minutes or an hour and a half. YouTube treat that as a highly SEO and targeted video. So how to build a social media following on LinkedIn, let's say, right? How to build a social media following, a lot of search volume. On LinkedIn, a lot of search volume. So over time, as LinkedIn has grown, that video grows in basically visibility. So YouTube will validate you when they see a good video. So let's just say, for example, you're getting decent engagement. The click-through rate, which is the visibility of your video, is high. And the average view duration is, let's say it's pretty good. Let's say it's 5 or 10 minutes, which is not pretty bad. At that point, YouTube think, okay, we can make money from this dude. So we're going to push his content to more people. And because the video isn't a hack or a trick or, something kind of like gimmicky or controversial, they're like, right, this is a really good video. So let's just push this video till the dawn of time. Why? Everyone wants to grow on social media. Everyone wants to grow on LinkedIn. This is a validated video. That does not happen on audio. It does not happen on Instagram. It does not happen on TikTok or even LinkedIn. And this is the gift that YouTube is giving to you that nobody knows. Like, this is like the secret that nobody knows. So we highly engineer videos. I start with the end in mind. Every single podcast I go into has a title before I even go in there. And people are like, oh, that's kind of boring. Do you not want it to be a bit open? I have 10 other ones. And then we also have thumbnails. I have one thumbnail and 6 variations before I even go into the podcast. I have topics. I have 15 different topics that I can go into different verticals. And the way we can run a conversation is that if this person wants to go into different nuances, of course we can diverge, we can divulge, we can do everything. But we are highly engineering the system to be able to create one of the most viral videos of all time. That's the entire framing. We go into everything. And when you hack that big idea and you make sure that that's the exact idea you're creating a video from, you can literally blow up your YouTube channel. I've done this literally time and time again with so many channels, and I've done like 100 million views in the past 2 years.
Wow.
I've done 50 million views last year. We're doing like easily 1 million views on my channel a month. And the whole idea is we reverse engineer the end goal. Start with the end in mind and keep on going from there.
That's beautiful. I believe most of people that they are hearing us right now, they're entrepreneurs. So how a podcast can help them just building their authority and even support them in their business.
You already said it. It's authority, credibility, and influence, right? We're in an era whereby it's not about the brand anymore. So brands are dead, right? Apple, Microsoft, whatever. We just see the brand. It's just a logo. The personal brand in the back end, the personal equity that you build, the brand equity around the individual is so powerful. So I interviewed the founder of Lempire recently, Lemlist, and I know Lempire because I know G. And because I know G, I know Lempire. And because he's built such a strong personal brand, it's influenced his B2B sales automation software. And he's got major deals as a result because that personal brand is the first foot in the door. So let's make this actionable. So let's say I reach out to you to run your podcast. You're going to be like, who the heck is this guy? Let's click on his link. Let's search his name. Oh, this guy has 60K on Instagram. 60K on YouTube, sorry. This guy has a few different platforms. All these different platforms feed into social validation that people know that I can like, know, and trust this person because other people like, know, and trust this person. So it's that knock-on effect. So whether you're someone who runs a B2B company or a B2C company, having that influence really, really increases the likelihood of people interacting with you. And that's just from a business perspective. There's a relationship perspective too, right? That a podcast will open way more doors from you. We just came in here a minute ago and we're talking about this, and this. And I know people, you know people. We are both in that kind of space. And now you don't need to become a podcast nerd. You can just be someone who has a podcast and other people will be drawn to you. It's like being in fitness, right? If you go to some of the great gyms here, you can meet people that are vastly different from you, but you have the same common interest. And as a result, there's a knock-on effects and how it all benefits. So if we're able to move from a position of how are we doing this just to make an ROI and how do we do something to build a brand equity, that's what we need to focus on. Because the problem with advertising, the problem with marketing is that people are doing it in a way that it's a zero-sum game. It's like direct marketing. They want to put out some content to get money back in the account straight away. The problem with that is the fact that you're not actually building brand equity. So if you run an ad, unfortunately, you're not going to build a lot of equity with that. So what you got to do instead is focus on the brand play. If you're building your own personal brand, that will come back to benefit you 3, 6, 9, 12 months from now. And if you can really lean into that and really focus in on that, literally the sky's the limit as you go forward.
Great. So, Voix, how can you help entrepreneurs from your company? What are the services or just the products that you can support them?
Of course. Just to give a little bit of an overview. So we manage and grow podcasts. So for founders, for entrepreneurs, and for companies, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to do it. And they also don't want to do it. So we've just been able to carve out a part in the internet whereby we will run shows on a service and we'll basically manage shows for people in the back end. And it's quite nice because a lot of founders will have products or services that they want to sell, but they don't know how to get distribution. And remember, to be able to increase your revenue, you need traffic. And to be able to increase traffic, you need content. So we really focus on the human connection, and that's what it's all about, is like building really good podcasts. So what I'm trying to do is work with founders and coach them. I'm trying to really get in under the hood and say, hey, you know a lot about X. That's great, but you don't know how to present your message. You don't know how to speak clearly. You don't know how to get the main key areas across. So how about we just walk through that? We walk slowly through that. And now that you have a really good message, you've no distribution. You could be the best person in the world and you're standing on top of a podium and no one's in the audience. We're trying to build you that audience. An audience just means if you go into the convention center here, the exhibition center, you don't walk into one person, you walk into 10,000 people every single day, every single hour. And the internet's on 24/7, right? So we've been able to kind of carve out that space and work with some creators, and a lot of businesses and brands. And I love it. I think what's really interesting is the fact that I see the cogs turning in people's minds. You know, a lot of people we work with are a bit older, maybe like their 40s or 50s, and they're saying like, whoa, I can connect with these people online and build a brand and also have fun doing it, right? I don't need to sell my soul writing a bunch of tweets or whatever they need to do, or those like faceless channels. I can just get on and have a conversation with people and actually enjoy it.
That's amazing. What could be something like ROI that, you know, entrepreneurs are always looking at return on investment, right?
100%.
If I ask just, I will invest time, I invest effort, I invest even money on such podcasting. What could be the ROI I'm getting as an entrepreneur?
So let's say you're trying to build like an email subscriber list to sell to, right? So a lot of people we work with, they sell info products or services or whatever. You sell in newsletters, right? With a podcast, set your funnel up hard. In the back end, let's say you're bringing people to a newsletter sign up. If we have a very, very good like landing page or whatever, you could get a ton of newsletter subscribers. So let's say your podcast is doing, you know, a couple thousand downloads a month. Let's keep modest. But 10% of those sign up. So you have 100 or 200 people signing up a month to your newsletter. And then of that, you're selling a high ticket offer. That becomes pretty powerful, right? So you own the audience. You go from rented to owned to monetize. And I learned that from Matt Gray, was the fact that you walk through that process and you're just basically converting people into a funnel, or you're converting people into that, right? The second side of it then is if you were a creator, you can make a lot of money from sponsorships. We've done like $100,000 a month in selling sponsorships, putting ads on people's podcasts. Bear in mind, people talk and they make thousands of dollars a month, and all we do is just put the sponsor on the podcast. And the reason why is credibility. Brands don't want to work with nobodies. They want to work with people who are credible. So if we're able to prove through concept that this podcast has a lot of high quality attributes, then we're able to take that and be able to bring it to brands. We work with some very big like Fortune 500 companies, and they're able to be like, yeah, we trust you. We trust Voix. We're going to put this amount of money into ad budgets and give it to your clients. So even people we don't work with, we get sponsored if they have a good audience and good engagement, and we can tell if they do or they don't. And at that point, then people can make like serious cash off that. And it's very scalable, right? Because if you think about a regular business, you need to put so much work in to get money back. Whereas with a podcast, if you put out one episode, you could do 10,000 downloads, 100,000 or 1 million, technically. It's scalable. There's no actual limit. So if we prove the concept, improve the quality, get really consistent results for people, that's when you start can get pretty wild with some numbers.
I want to ask you a personal question.
More personal, the better.
Okay. So how did you get your first sponsorship for your podcast? Did you have a strategy of getting it, or just it came by nature?
That's a good question. It's a combination of both. So I get a lot of messages from YouTube. That's the main thing. And when they usually come through from YouTube, it's for a reason. They've seen a video, or they've seen a particular clip, and then they want to interact with you. But you have to walk before you can run. And I always say this to a lot of clients, right? Is the fact that if you're getting interest about your podcast or whatever, you're trying to find out what that individual wants and what they're trying to solve. So a brand, what do they want? They want exposure, they want traffic, they want sales. So if you are someone as a key person of influence that can drive traffic to an offer, you can make them sales and you can make them money, and therefore they should trust you. If I showed you today that if you gave me $2,000, I can make you $30,000, wouldn't you give me the $2,000? So we're trying to prove to people that we are someone who's a key person of influence, and you can give us the $2,000 and we'll make you the 30. And over time, we walk through that process. It doesn't happen overnight, of course not, but we're able to slowly walk through that process. And we did it for me in the very beginning, in the early stages. I was working with some health supplement companies. It was doing really well, and they stuck around. Like, I worked with some companies for up to like 9 months, bear in mind, because they're seeing the positive ROI, right? Which is quite interesting. And then I took that model and said, okay, let's put this on steroids, basically. Let's bring this to other people, and it's more scalable, right? And I think it's quite interesting because now, even for kickoff sessions, I don't chase sponsorships. It comes naturally, and we're actually doing a lot of work at that at the moment. And the more natural it becomes, it's like the law of attraction, right? If you push and push and push, you repel. So I think that's quite nice. But sales is an interesting one. You have to basically just go through the fire to get better at sales, right? And learn as well at the same time.
That's a beautiful last question. If there is any entrepreneur, they're listening to us right now, maybe they have great ideas, innovations, they keep trying, moving, grinding on the ground, but for some reason it doesn't work. What is your best advice for them?
The problem isn't the vehicle, it's them. Everything works. Service businesses work, drop shipping works, trading works, everything works. But the problem is the individual. So if someone is not making enough money, it's them. They either don't have the technical skills or they haven't done the inner work. And your business is a reflection of you. So if you're not making enough money, it just means that you're not good enough to make that much money yet. You need to go do that work. If you're making 50K a month, you're not good enough to make 100K a month. You have to keep on going. If you're making 850K a month, you're not capable of making $1 million a month. And people will look at everything but themselves. They'll view their VA as the problem, their agencies as a problem, the email sequences as the problem, but they don't look inwards, and they haven't done that internal work. And the more internal work you do, the more you slow down and look at that, you'll come to realize that you're the problem, you're the bottleneck. And it's not the process is the bottleneck, it's the people. And the people is generally you, because you've employed the other people anyway. So it's basically you. You are every single problem that you've created, and it's only you that can solve the problem. So the more time you could spend looking inward, documenting, reflecting, looking at how things are working, you're going to become a better entrepreneur. You're going to be a better person. I remember for a long time, we were stuck in the business. We were making like about $250,000 a year. And I was basically banging my head off the table trying to like figure out how we could just grow. And I just couldn't figure it out. And I was sending cold outreach. I was reaching out to dead leads, doing all this kind of stuff. And we still weren't growing. And I thought to myself, well, maybe it's actually me. Maybe I'm just not good enough. I went back and started learning sales books, reading copywriting, reading marketing books. I started reading a lot of business processes book, and it's boring and it's not sexy. But the thing is that that's what business is. That's what makes you money, is the boring stuff. It's not the flashy stuff. And I like to think about this is it's about sustained energy. So you see guys making a lot of money online, overnight, not overnight, but doing like a launch, let's say, and then they can't retain it or sustain it. So not being able to sustain it is worse than not being able to retain it. So if you are someone who spends some money, whatever, but if you can make some money, better. But a lot of people, they can't sustain their business. And that was something that I really tried to focus in on. It was like, okay, maybe my company will not be a unicorn company, but maybe it can consistently make X amount of money every single month with a growth rate of 20% every quarter or 30% every quarter. And that to me is like what it's about. And of course we can add more to it. We could add sales reps, we could add like all this kind of stuff. Now that'll come, but it's the internal work, because it's not about growing the biggest business, or it's not about showing it on Instagram. It's just about being in alignment with what you want, and then just walking it down every second of the day forever.
Darren, I would like really to thank you for coming here today. I remember that we had like this conversation maybe 6 months back when we connected over LinkedIn. The energy, the inspiration, the power, the influence, the thinking, man, it's contagious. What I can just, I can give you like amazing energy. I would say that I can receive it today, and I believe also our audience, they have it. Thank you so much for being here today. Keep inspiring, keep impacting, and keep influencing. And I'm sure also with your energy, Voix will go for another level, man.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much. Unleash is the bridge between my purpose and my mission. And my mission is unleashing the human greatness to its utmost potential.